This is Sigmund Freud, and he was absolutely, completely, undeniably strange. He believed your mother was the source of all your problems. He thought dreams were secret messages from your darkest desires. He was addicted to cocaine. He was obsessed with death. And he is arguably the most influential human being who ever studied the mind. Corners. Last time, we asked what psychology really is. This time, we meet the man who changed it forever. Sigmund Freud was born in 1856. In Iceberg, now part of the Czech Republic. He grew up in Vienna, Austria, a city of culture, darkness, and repression. The perfect place to develop theories about hidden desires and secret impulses. He trained as a neurologist, a brain doctor, not a psychologist, not a therapist, a scientist who studied the physical brain. But Freud became obsessed with something science couldn't yet explain. Why do people behave the way they do? Why do people feel things they cannot name? Why do people keep making the same destructive choices over and over again? He believed the answer wasn't in the brain, it was in the mind, and specifically, in the part of the mind nobody could see. In this video we are going to talk about 3 controversial theories Freud gave. Iceberg theory, structure of personality, defense mechanisms, criticisms of these theories. Freud's most important idea was simple and terrifying. He said your conscious mind is just the tip of the iceberg. Everything you're aware of, every thought you can access, every feeling you can name, that's the small part above the water, below the surface. A vast, dark, churning ocean of thoughts, desires, memories, and impulses that you cannot access, cannot control, but that control you. Freud proposed the mind has 3 levels: conscious mind, tip of the iceberg, everything you're currently aware of, thoughts, feelings, perceptions right now. Only a tiny fraction of total mental activity, fully accessible at all times. Preconscious mind, just below surface, memories and knowledge not currently active, accessible with effort and attention. Example, your home address, not always thinking about it, but can access it easily. Unconscious mind, massive hidden base, completely hidden from conscious awareness, contains repressed memories, desires, fears, conflicts. Drives most behavior without your knowledge, cannot be directly accessed, only revealed through dreams, slips of tongue, therapy. Freud believed personality has 3 distinct structures. 1. The ID, the primitive instinctual self present from birth, operates entirely in the unconscious, seeks immediate pleasure and gratification. Has no concept of reality, morality, or consequences, driven by the pleasure principle. Want it now, get it now. Contains sexual and aggressive drives, completely selfish. No empathy, no patience. Example, a baby crying immediately when hungry. No patience, no consideration. Pure ID. 2. The ego, the rational, realistic mediator, develops in early childhood. Operates across conscious, preconscious, and unconscious mediates between the ID's demands and reality, driven by the reality principle. Wants satisfaction, but in realistic, socially acceptable ways. Plans, reasons, and problem solves. Delays gratification when necessary. Example, instead of stealing food when hungry, the ego plans how to earn money to buy it. 3. The superego, the moral conscience, develops around ages 3 to 6. Operates across all 3 levels of consciousness, internalizes society's rules, parental values, and moral standards. 2 components. Conscience, punishes with guilt when you do wrong. Ego ideal, rewards with pride when you do right. Strives for moral perfection, often unrealistically. Example, feeling guilty after lying even when nobody found out. The dynamic between all 3 IDs says, I want it now. Superego says, that's completely wrong. Ego says, here's a realistic compromise. When ego manages this well equals healthy personality. When id wins equals impulsive destructive behavior. When superego wins equals excessive guilt, anxiety, rigidity. Defense mechanisms are strategies the ego uses to protect the conscious mind from anxiety caused by conflicts between the ID and superego. It is an automatic, unconscious psychological process that protects the mind from anxiety, difficult emotions, or threatening thoughts. Initially formulated in psychoanalytic theory, these mental strategies help maintain psychological balance but can become maladaptive if overused. 1. Repression. Pushing threatening thoughts into the unconscious, the most fundamental defense mechanism, the foundation of all others. Example: a person who experienced childhood abuse has no conscious memory of it. Repressed entirely. Problem: repressed material doesn't disappear, it influences behavior from the unconscious. 2. Denial. Refusing to accept a threatening reality. The mind simply refuses to acknowledge something painful or threatening exists. Example: someone diagnosed with a serious illness, refusing to believe the diagnosis. Problem: prevents dealing with real problems, can be life-threatening. 3. Projection. Attributing your own unacceptable feelings to someone else. You unconsciously transfer your own threatening impulses onto another person. Example: someone who is angry at their partner accuses the partner of being angry at them. Problem: damages relationships, prevents self-awareness. 4. Displacement. Redirecting emotion from threatening target to safer target. When you can't express feelings toward the real source, you redirect them. Example: humiliated by your boss at work. Come home and shout at your family instead. Problem: innocent people receive misdirected emotions, relationships damaged. 5. Sublimation. Channeling unacceptable impulses into socially acceptable behavior, the only defense mechanism Freud considered truly healthy. Example: aggressive impulses channeled into competitive sport or physical exercise. Example: sexual energy channeled into creative art or music benefit. Genuinely productive, transforms negative energy into positive output. 6. Rationalization. Creating logical explanations for irrational or unacceptable behavior. You invent reasonable-sounding justifications for things driven by other motives. Example: I didn't get the job because the interviewer was biased, rather than acknowledging poor preparation. Problem: prevents genuine self-reflection and growth. 7. Regression. Reverting to behaviors from an earlier developmental stage under stress when overwhelmed, returning to childlike coping behaviors. Example: an adult throwing a tantrum when frustrated. Example: a toilet-trained child starting to wet the bed when a new sibling arrives. Problem: immature responses to adult problems, rarely effective. 8. Reaction formation. Acting in the exact opposite way to how you actually feel, unconsciously converting an unacceptable feeling into its opposite. Example: someone who unconsciously resents their child becoming excessively overprotective. Example: someone attracted to a person they're not supposed to be, treating them with exaggerated hostility. Problem: exhausting to maintain, prevents authentic emotional expression. 9. Intellectualization. Using abstract thinking and logic to avoid emotional engagement. Removing yourself emotionally from a distressing situation by analyzing it coldly. Example: a person who has just been diagnosed with terminal illness, calmly researching survival statistics, rather than processing the emotional reality. Problem: emotions don't disappear. They accumulate and eventually surface. 10. Identification. Adopting characteristics of someone who causes anxiety, unconsciously taking on the traits of a threatening or powerful person. Example: a bullying victim becoming a bully themselves. Example: a child adopting the aggressive traits of an abusive parent. Problem: can perpetuate cycles of harmful behavior. 11. Undoing. Performing an action designed to symbolically cancel out a previous unacceptable thought or action, a kind of psychological undo button. Example: being cruel to someone, and then immediately being excessively kind. Example: having an aggressive thought, and then performing a ritual to neutralize it. Common in OCD. Problem: reinforces anxiety rather than resolving it. The iceberg theory. 1. Not scientifically testable, cannot measure or observe the unconscious directly. 2. Circular reasoning, unconscious behavior explained by unconscious, unfalsifiable. 3. Overemphasis on hidden forces. Modern psychology shows much behavior is consciously driven. 4. Neuroscience challenge. Brain imaging doesn't support 3 distinct mental layers. 5. Cultural bias. Developed from observations of a narrow Victorian European population. Structure of personality. Not scientifically testable. Cannot locate id, ego or superego in the brain. Too simplistic. Personality is far more complex than 3 structures. Sexist foundations. Superego development theory treated women as morally inferior. Cultural limitations. Based on Victorian European middle-class patients only. Lack of empirical evidence. No controlled experiments support these structures. Overemphasis on conflict. Not all behavior stems from internal structural conflict. Defense mechanisms. Hard to measure. How do you scientifically test repression versus rationalization? Interpreted subjectively. Therapists may see defense mechanisms where none exist. Unfalsifiable. Any behavior can be explained as a defense mechanism. Ignores conscious coping. Modern psychology recognizes healthy conscious coping strategies. Cultural variation. What counts as acceptable behavior varies across cultures. Some have research support. Projection and displacement have some empirical backing, others do not. Why he changed everything. Before Freud, mental illness was considered a moral failing, a weakness, a punishment. People with psychological problems were locked away, ignored, feared. Freud said no. The mind is complex. Suffering has causes, those causes can be explored, and understanding them can heal. He gave the world a new way of thinking about the human mind. He made psychology a legitimate field of study. He introduced concepts we still use today, the unconscious. Defense mechanisms. The talking cure. The idea that childhood shapes who we become. Was he right about everything? Absolutely not. Was he one of the most important thinkers in human history? Absolutely yes. Sigmund Freud looked into the darkest corners of the human mind, and what he found there changed everything. Now the strong part, because there were many. Freud was a heavy cocaine user. He wrote papers praising cocaine as a wonderful drug. He gave it to his friend, his colleagues, his patients. He was wrong about this. Spectacularly wrong. He believed almost everything psychological came back to sexuality. Everything. In ways that made even his colleagues uncomfortable. He developed a theory called the Oedipus complex. The idea that the young boys are unconsciously attracted to their mothers and fear their fathers. Most modern psychologists have largely abandoned this theory. For obvious reasons. He was also obsessed with death. He developed a concept called thanatos, the death drive. The idea that humans have an unconscious desire towards self-destruction, which looking at human history is difficult to entirely dismiss. He was strange. He was wrong about many things. But he was also undeniably a genius. We'll talk about these in detail, and many other weird and controversial theories Freud gave all over his lifetime in the coming videos. Subscribe to Psych Noir. New video every week. Stay curious, stay dark.